Hello, my name is Chris Callaghan and I am the creator and writer of a series of books called Shinoy and the Chaos Crew. Now, these are a series of 24 books for now, but there are more coming. And some of them, 7 of these, have been written by a fantastic writer called Zoe Clark. And they've all been illustrated by a wonderful illustrator called Amit Tayal, who's done a great job bringing all these characters to life. So it's been fantastic working with these people to create an action-packed series of books. Now, these stories are about a boy called Shinoy, and he has a favourite TV programme called The Chaos Crew. He really loves this programme, and it's a programme about some superhero type people who have lots of crazy adventures as they all battle an evil enemy called Snare, who's always up to some kind of mischief. Now, Shinoy has an app on his phone. Now, this app is meant to just allow him to play games of the Chaos Crew and get information on the Chaos Crew and even watch some of the Chaos Crew TV programs. But this app has a glitch, which means that when he presses this app, a member or a few members of the Chaos Crew come into his world, and Shinoy goes off and has crazy adventures with these members of the Chaos Crew. And because this app has the glitch, it creates a bit of a link between Shinoy's world and the Chaos Crew's TV world, which means that the evil baddie called Snare sometimes sneaks into Shinoy's world and starts messing around with things. So as a result, there's lots of wacky adventures that happen as a result of this. So I'm going to read you one of these stories. Now, it was hard to choose a story to read to you, so I just chose this one because it's a very colourful one. So we'll see what it's about. But it's called The Day of the Baffling Books. Now, at the start of every story, we introduce Shinoy and his family, and there's his best friend Toby, who's going to be in this story as well. And there's a picture of Shinoy's phone with members of the Chaos Crew, and it gives you an indication of which member of the Chaos Crew is going to appear in the story. And there's a picture of the evil Snare, who, as I said, is always up to trouble. So let's see what he's doing in this story, shall we? So, chapter 1, The Challenge. So Toby and Shinoy are in the school reception area. They've been challenged or have to put up a display area. "Why did we get lumbered with this?" asked Toby. "Because we did a good job with the last display," said Shinoy. "But it's lunchtime and I'm hungry." "Exactly," said Shinoy with a grin. He peeked into the school office. It was empty. So was the reception area. Grabbing his rucksack, he pulled out some sandwiches and chucked one to Toby. He stretched out on the visitor sofas and pointed a remote control at the big screen display. "Let's see if we can watch the Sci-Fi Channel." So there's them in the reception area. Yes, I mean, I wonder if your school has a little area where there's a few sofas and maybe a big screen TV there as well. A burst of static on the screen revealed the Chaos Crew's enemy, Snare. So there's Snare on the TV there. "That was quick," thought Shinoy. "He'd only pressed a few random buttons." "Ha ha ha," laughed Snare. "You don't have time for rest, young fools. I have one of your precious chaos creeps imprisoned." "I don't remember this one," commented Shinoy. "Is this the one," wondered Toby, "where Snare ends up in a lake of mutant monster puke?" They think they're watching an episode of the Chaos Crew. "No, it is not," screamed Snare. "And that never happened." Shinoy and Toby gaped at each other. Was Snare talking to them? "The creature with wings is trapped in a temporal prison that I have created. In a book. She's confined on page 67. You have until the cease of nutritional gluttony." What? Shinoy and Toby pulled puzzled faces. Snare sighed. "Oh, you have until the end of lunchtime." That makes sense. "Otherwise your flying member of the clumsy crew will be trapped forever." Ember? Now that's Ember there. Now Ember's a member of the Chaos Crew that can fly. Ember trapped? But Page 67 of which book? Asked Shinoy. Snare had faded from view, to be replaced with even scarier images of the teaching staff. Yes, maybe your school has pictures of the teaching staff displayed in the reception area as well, and I bet some of them are scary, aren't they? Chapter 2. Challenge accepted. What's a temporal prison? Asked Toby. Series 2, said Shinoy. They're used to hold a prisoner in a tiny space. And Shinoy waved one of the plastic-wrapped photos they'd been adding to the display. It's like being laminated. They quickly looked around for a book. It could be any book, anywhere. It was definitely a reason to call to action Chaos Crew. But Shinoy's phone was in the class drawer. Luckily, the big screen display was a smart screen. He found the online Chaos Crew game and tapped in the login details. So this is another way to get the Chaos Crew to come into his world. The screen flashed a light, released a flash of light, and Bug stepped out. New delivery route, she nodded approvingly. I like your skills. I can't stay. Ember's missing. Ember's here, said Shinoy, but we're not exactly sure where. She's on page 67, said Toby, trying to help. Shinoy quickly explained. So he explained to Bug that Snare was involved and had put Ember into a prison on page 67. Bug suggested she visit the computer room to use the network to detect Ember's location, because Bug is a computer expert. And you two need to check as many books as you can, double quick. Shinoy and Toby crashed into the nearest classroom, which was being used by the lunchtime book club. Sorry, Mrs. Davidson, said Shinoy to the teacher. We haven't got much time to explain, but can everyone turn to page 67? Are you doing a book review, Shinoy? Someone giggled. Please, just have a look. Is there something like a laminated bookmark there? Everyone shook their heads. This was impossible. Where's the best place to find books? Wondered Shinoy out loud. The library? Said Toby. Of course. Why hadn't they gone there first? I hope your school has a school library. Not every school does. So, chapter 3. Chaos in the library. The library was empty. Not even Shinoy's mum, the school librarian, was there. Unfortunately, there were gazillions of books, shelves, displays, and piles of them everywhere. They grabbed a book each. This one's got great pictures in it, said Toby. Shinoy groaned. Oh, we haven't got time to browse. We need to... Oh, look, this one's about the end of chocolate. Proper nightmare. Shinoy snapped the book shut and opened another. Come on, no messing. We need to find Ember. With a determined sense of purpose, they whooshed through page after page. Piles of books that had been checked grew everywhere, like baby leaning towers of Pisa. So you can imagine, once they've checked the book, they're putting it on top of each other and they're all wobbling around in the library. But there were many more still waiting on the shelves. This was going to take all day. I've got a location, shouted Bug, hurtling in. It's not exact, but I know which room. The staff room. Shinoy and Toby stared at each other in horror and gulped. Oh, the staff room? Nobody wants to go in the staff room, do they? So, chapter 4, inside the staff room. Shinoy and Toby crawled into the staff room on their hands and knees. Pupils were not normally allowed in, but this was an emergency. Maybe I should help Bug, whispered Toby. Bug was fiddling with the photocopier in the corridor just outside the staff room. Shinoy firmly shook his head and crawled in further. The carpet stank of stale coffee and mouldy biscuits. They couldn't see any books, just lots of teachers' feet. Ember had to be in here somewhere. Suddenly, Shinoy's mum burst in. The look on her face told Shinoy she'd seen the mess in the library. Shinoy stood up quickly, startling the teachers. We're doing a library project. Can we check your books? Yes, added Mum, clearly aware that something was up. Sorry to bother you. What book would Snare hide something in? Wondered Shinoy. He would put it somewhere hard to find, or in the last place they would think to look. Is there a book that no one has read or ever looks at? Shinoy asked desperately. The staff glanced at each other. Well, said Miss Sharp, there's a book written by Mr. Amit, who's the head teacher in Shinoy's school. It's called My Amazing Life as an Educational Expert. Miss Sharp handed Shinoy the most boring looking book ever, and he blew the dust off it and looked for page 67. A postcard-sized image of Ember was wedged between the pages. There we go. But only it wasn't an image, it was actually her, trapped in a temporal prison. Thank you, shouted Shinoy, and he ran out into the corridor. Now we need a blast of radiation, said Toby, banging his fist on the photocopier. They needed that radiation to make Ember escape from the prison. How are we going to do that? Light is radiation, isn't it? Said Shinoy. Correct, said Bug, jumping up from behind the photocopier, waving a spanner. I've given it an extra little boost. Shinoy slid the wafer-thin Ember onto the top of the photocopier and pressed scan. The display read, warming up. It seemed to take forever until a bright beam of light whooshed across the temporal prison. Chapter 5. Freedom! In an instant, a full-sized Ember was sitting on the copier, stretching her arms. Oh, that's glorious, she smiled. What on earth is going on? Bellowed Mr. Amit. Just some authors visiting my library, said Shinoy's mum. Well, I don't care how famous you think you are, said the head teacher. I'm not letting anyone photocopy their bottom in my school. He suddenly noticed the book in Shinoy's hand and smiled. I suppose you'd like me to sign that for you, he said. Yeah, that's right. That's what I was waiting for, said Shinoy. Mr. Amit scribbled an overly dramatic signature onto the title page and swaggered away, trying not to look too pleased with himself. I'm off, said Ember. Thanks for getting me out of that squishy nightmare. She nodded at Bug, and in a flash, they were gone. Right then, you two, said Shinoy's mum. You've got a lot of tidying up to do in the library. I could donate this to the library, said Shinoy, holding up the signed copy. Perfect. That's just what I need for this wobbly bookcase. So that's where Mr. Amit's book ends up, supporting a wobbly bookcase in Shinoy's school library. So that's just one of the adventures of Shinoy and the Chaos Crew. I hope that's intrigued you a little bit more to find out some more stories. And if you do read these stories, I hope you enjoy them. And maybe the next time you're in your school library or you pick up a book, why don't you check out page 67 and see if there's a member of the Chaos Crew that's been trapped in there by the evil Snare. You never know. So thank you very much for listening. You take care of yourselves.